Hello, and welcome to another episode of the Ground Control Podcast. I'm Patrick Reif, your host, and very excited to have you here today. Not a lot of dilly-dallying going to do. We're on a very specific course that we're trying to accomplish here, so I want to jump right into it. And today, what I want to talk about a little bit is we're going to harken back to the I Built It on a Ski Lift episode to kind of like double down on what we were talking about there. Like, were we saying that like you need to go to a ski lift to build an app? No, we weren't saying that. What we were saying is like, look what is possible now. So kind of the theme for today is, what are the lessons that we learned about the ski lift app, about constraints, and how we can use them to actually power what we're trying to do. So again, I'm Patrick Reif. This is the Ground Control Podcast. Let's get into it. So thinking back, a few weeks ago to that ski lift episode, and what the outcome of it was, maybe the point of why I'm chatting today was, sometimes what we think we are communicating, we are not communicating as clearly as we might like. And what I was worried about, and why I'm doubling back on this, was I was worried that the novelty of the thumbnail that I built this on a ski lift would obscure the point, the lesson that I was trying to illustrate there. Is a ski lift the best place to build a tool that you're going to sell to the public? I don't know, maybe yes, but also like that wasn't the point. The point was these tools that are available now, they're very powerful and they're very nimble. And what would you be able to do if you maybe reduce the amount of respect that you give to how to start building something, and instead we're willing to just, approach it like you got a few buckets and you're going to the beach and you're going to build some sandcastles, right? That was kind of like the bigger idea that I wanted to illustrate, is what this current like paradigm shift is in the world where we're at. I think additionally, like to put a finer point on it, all of the greatest inventions, all the greatest turns and moments in time, they happen just like that. And they don't happen because there's 1,000 ingredients. They happen because there's the right 1, 2, or maybe 3 ingredients at the right time being applied to one another in the right way that creates the synergy of a moment that something big comes from. Great improvised music isn't about having all of the instruments in the world. It's about having 1 or 2 options and then coming up with what you can with those ingredients. And I think in that sense, I tend to think that limitations are a philosophy that really allow you to, rather than look at what you don't have, instead look at what you do have, and then determine what is a reasonable spot that you can pick out on the horizon to head towards, and what might you build between here and there. So I think, like for me, there was a moment where things started to click, and it was probably, where it was I've been working on Ideoloop, and I had built some like tests, like some I don't know, shots across the bow versions of it in different tools before. Like I was flirting with Lovable for a little while building it. I had flirted with building it maybe just in Claude from a desktop perspective. But I first seriously started to work on building it in the Google Studio, a Google AI Studio, because I had listened to a podcast with someone talking about it, and it seemed like kind of the all-in-one container that would make this thing possible. And also, like, it was the flashy new thing. So I was like, oh, I will, what I will do to make this official is I will learn a new tool to do it on. So my point is just that I started there and I got it to a place where there was something really there, but then I started to run into the limitations of the AI studio model, probably more so my limitations in understanding how to work with it, and I basically ended up in a rut. And not being able to move past a certain point. Like I think I added, like Google OAuth one way before I probably needed it, like totally fucked up on that one. Um, get stuck on a feature that's like not essential to actually what you're building. There's some first time beginners behavior, if ever there is one. Um, but long story short, ran it aground, like made a bunch of progress, got really excited about it, ran it aground, tried to pull it off of the sandbar multiple times in Google Studio and just was fucking shitting the bed. So then from there, I probably pumped the brakes on doing anything on it for a little bit. And then if I'm correct, I ended up starting to learn how to use VS Code. And the inspiration for using VS Code was that I knew that you could also install access to Claude Code and to the OpenAI codex and also to Gemini to be able to bring the three of them in to work on your thing. So then I moved it there, right? I pushed it up into, I don't know, GitHub or something, I guess, and started working on it there. And I had some progress. Mostly I was using Claude, but I was able to say, like, hey, Claude, here is this data set. This is the problem that I can't get past. And we were able to fix it. And then ultimately, I ended up pushing it out and working on it exclusively in Claude Code, which is where I was able to start actually making a significant amount of headway on the whole project, right? Um, which was great until even there I got into the mistake of um, having two different code bases for the same app that were on different computers, or one was in the cloud and one was a local file, and they came out of sync with one another. And it was this huge problem. I broke it. Basically, I had the whole thing working and it was going well, and then I broke it. And then I figured out how to unbreak it. And I've got both code sets and I figured out how to merge them together and to not delete things and to come out the other side with a single output. In the process, I learned that having a single place where all that code lives, that, that when you're done working on it, you push all those code change updates. I just didn't know it. I was teaching myself. I say all this to say, to circle back and make the point that what has made me more courageous is realizing, like the reason that the limitation of doing something on a ski lift didn't worry me is that I have built stuff that worked and is cool, and then I broke it in ways that I would have thought I could never fix it, and then I was able to fix it. And I started to realize that it doesn't have to be quite so scary. It doesn't have to be quite so planned for. Like we're at a place where we can roll the dice a little bit and leave a breadcrumb trail, find our way back, find our way forward, but not be stopped in our tracks. So one of the things I've been thinking about, like all of that being said, I've been thinking a lot about like how does this go into practice, and I've got this loose. It's not a rule, right? But whatever, a little wisdom, a 72-hour rule that I try and practice with whatever, like clients, friends, other people's businesses, common conversation. But, the 72-hour rule is all about, it's the window where authentic enthusiasm stays, um, up underneath of the idea. And then after that point, like if you haven't managed to harness enough momentum for it to be able to for the flywheel to catch, even if the flywheel is only your enthusiasm for it, or seeing the potential down through you know continuing to press, right? Like being able to validate, like, yes, I should continue to give this 72 more hours, I should continue to give this 2 weeks to see where it shakes out. um it's interesting to think about that kind of thing because one of the reasons that we need to be okay with shooting a little bit more from the hip and rolling things out there, particularly if we're on this plan of tight iteration, right? Is that it allows us to build things quickly and to get them out there and then to measure them, right? And if you can spend more of your time building something, um, and not have all 72 of those hours get soaked up by 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 just building the thing, right? And instead you can invest those 72 hours in evangelizing what it's about. That's important. So again, it really illustrates the duality of how I think about ground control in particular, because for me, I want to I want to work on these big ideas with clients, right? Like I want to help them build systems and strategies and plans for 12 and 24 and 40 months, and like what the what the roadmap looks to get there, right? A lot of the philosophy around what we're trying to do, but also simultaneously, right? I want to be able to be hands-on with building out the solutions, right? To make sure that the observational knowledge that I have of the task at hand can be inserted into the tools and the nuance of how we're being able to use those tools, right? And that's what is happening right now. And that is why I'm very, very thrilled. I'm very thrilled about it. But you know, to bring it to a head, it's why it's important that the bigger mission behind the I built this on a ski lift is not the novelty of I built this on a ski lift. It's the very important point of I gave myself a bunch of constraints to try something, and look what I was able to do in that petri dish. That's the lesson. That's the observation. So what does all this mean in the grand scheme of what our conversation is about is that you know, more than any other means of control and influence that you can exercise inside of your business, uh, constraints are probably the most powerful, probably the ones that are going to give you the most outsized ROI that you can imagine. Um, And it's just because it's the gift of being able to focus. In a real world example, you, for every client that I work with, and I would say for myself as well, um, they are all beautiful, creative, driven builders of some sort or the other, and they're experts in their realm, which means that they've just got lots of ideas. Um, and and you know, like sometimes that's a very good thing, and sometimes it is not a good thing. It's not a good thing when you've identified exactly what needs to happen, when you've identified the where your focus point needs to be. You've proved it out. You know it's exactly there. You know, like that's your signal to lock in and go hard on it. And time and again, when you're able to lock in and go hard on it, the you know data point or two that you need to look at to prove that it's working are very clean and clear. And you know, like it's the part of this it's the part of business that validates looking at things from an unemotional perspective, right? From being able to look at things from a point of data and say, look, like this is what we decided, this is how we were going to address it, this is what was done, and this is the result. And there is there's nothing more powerful than having things that are framed um, in that perspective. Like there's no better way to illustrate my point than quite simply that. You know, like you need a minimal amount of ingredients cared for well with close attention being paid to make a really beautiful recipe. You don't need all the ingredients in the world um and too much hand wringing to make it happen. Um and that's just a time immortal comment. So, you know, today's chat about constraints. It's more of one of the more open-ended conversations I think that we've had here. Maybe you guys will like it. Like, do you like this side of the philosophical track or not? Let me know. Like, leave it in the chat or say like this sucks. We'll probably nicely say it nicely. Say it nicely. Yeah. Uh, please, if you're not, go ahead and hit subscribe, whether this is on YouTube or your favorite podcast channel. If you can leave me a comment on YouTube, I read everyone and I respond to all of them. I'm Patrick Reif. This is the Ground Control Podcast. As always, thank you so much for your ears and your ideas. Until the next time, peace.